Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Big Money Dodge. Dude, you chose to miss a phenomenal interview. We've been chit-chatting off camera with our guest, and he is a wrestling heel. That's right, Dodge, you heard me. A actual wrestling heel. A dude that you would actually pay attention to and want to listen to, but you're not here. Oh, well. So, for Nathan, for myself, we welcome Mr. Nolan Phillips. Welcome to the show, sir, and take it away, Nathan.
Well, like he said, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
No, I'm just kidding. Been around for a little while. I actually started training about 2 months after I left high school. I went across the states. I went from Texas all the way up to Washington. I trained with a school for a place at the time called Pinnacle Wrestling. Got my training there, wrestled up there for a little while, came back to Texas, and I've basically just been mostly in West Texas. So I've been wrestling on and off since 2005. So, and by no means I want anyone to think that like, oh, he's been around a long time. He thinks he's a veteran. I use the term long timer. In my opinion, a vet of the business is someone who's actually gone on and done something, actually like makes money at it. That's not anything that I've ever done. So I don't want to get crossed. I don't want anyone to think that like I'm that guy. I'm not. But other than that, I've just been doing it essentially for fun, what some people would call, the weekender type. But yeah, that's me.
So, Tony, you want to start this one off?
Oh. Well, you're actually being generous tonight, Mr. Noss. Normally, you you steal all the show because they call you the wrestling encyclopedia. So yeah, I guess I can start it off. So
well, they do call me that. But...
Oh, shut up, or I'll mute your mic, Noss. So who are some of your wrestling heroes?
Wrestling heroes. Well, the people that I really gravitated towards when I started watching wrestling, I was about mid-90s, kind of getting in towards the Attitude Era, but I didn't really watch WWF. In fact, I didn't even know WWF existed. I watched WCW, and the people I gravitated towards were more of the mid-card guys, the undercard guys, the high flyers, guys like Eddie Guerrero, at the time, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Ultimo Dragon. I was a huge Ultimo Dragon mark. I don't know if it was because he and Sonny Ono came out with the 9 titles just draped in gold. But like his style just spoke to me. That was like, part striker, submissionist with a little bit of high flying in there. Like for me, he was the total package. Speaking of like the guys at the top, like the total package, Lex Luger, Kevin Nash, Hogan and stuff, like those guys didn't entertain me. They just seemed slow and plodding. And that just wasn't what grabbed me. And it might also be because I'm a smaller guy anyway. Like I'm 5'9", 5'10", depending on which store I'm leaving. I never really got the big guy thing. Now, if you work a different style, it can work. Like, at least in my opinion, you don't have to just be plotting for the sake of plotting. Like you watch a guy like Kane when he was in his heyday, he can do, always had the big guy things, but he can then go out and do like the top rope clothesline and stuff like that. He didn't just decide, oh, I'm going to be big, therefore I'm going to be big just for the sake of being big. At least that's the way I felt about all that kind of stuff. But I've always been more attracted to the wrestlers, so to speak. Like your Benoit, Kurt Angle, Guerrero, those guys.
Yeah, I thought when Hogan went to WCW, they should have changed his character up more than they did with just the NWO.
Yeah.
I think that would have helped a little bit more, as far as not making him like you said, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And see, I was never one of those kids that like, I never really got the NWO. Like, there was a lot of people that cheered the NWO because they were the cool bad guys. I didn't care for the NWO. I cheered more for DDP, like when they spun him around and made him basically the people's champion. I was a huge mark for the Diamond Cutter.
Mhm.
I mean, and clearly a lot of people in the business were, because, half the people out there use some variation of the cutter nowadays.
Yeah.
This is just one of my general philosophies. If it's something that's used on TV, I try not to use it. So if like everyone's using the RKO, I'm definitely not going to be using the RKO. I'm going to use something that isn't used. I'll give you another example. You can actually go find a video of mine from 2005, 2006. I hit what is essentially a code breaker. And that was one of my more common moves I would use. But then as soon as Jericho, had his comeback to WWE and started using it on TV, I'm like, nope, I got to cut that. And I haven't used it since. Because I didn't want to be going to a show and be like, oh, you're using the code breaker. No, it's not the code breaker. I was doing it first. I have proof. But they're not going to believe me because,
Because it's Jericho.
Yeah. So, and there's no reason to get into that argument or anything. So I've always tried to really spin my style so that it was something that nobody uses. And a recent example actually was I started using what I can't think of his name right now. The current U.S. champion, what's his face? That uses the A-Town down.
Austin Theory.
Yes. I started using that move, and then he started busting it out on TV. I'm like, well, I got to stop using that now. I just started using it. And then
You're like, oh, man.
Yeah, I'm like, can't use that because now they're just going to associate me with him. So I gotta change it up again. So I always try to differentiate when I can. Obviously, you can't do it with everything, but otherwise there won't be any moves left to do.
Right.
Yeah, I do try to do that. I try to do anything I can to stand out. That was one of the first things I really felt like I learned when I was going through my training. There was a show up in the Washington area that I didn't work, but I went and did a seminar with I am brain farting really bad right now. Dr. Tom. And Dr. Tom,
yeah.
which I'm pretty sure y'all have heard this because that dude, easily the best trainer in the country, I would say. All that dude he does the best seminars. They're all-day seminars, and it's not just, here, I'm going to show you how to do a hip toss, and then I go home. He does a lot of stuff. But one of the things that really stuck out with me with him was him talking about how to stand out and everything. And I did. I looked around and looked at everybody. I'm like, everybody's wearing black and red. How can I stand out? So I went and got gear that was bright orange and white. So you saw me, like if you saw me in a battle royal, you would see me sticking out like a sore thumb. And it worked. I mean, the gear by itself helped me stand out to the point where literally the very first feud, for lack of a better word, the first match I ever had, I got my nose busted open. Hard way. Dude just caught me right on the button with a knee. But they decided, we're gonna spin you off against that guy. Well, it was a gentleman by the name of Cameron Starr who was gay.
I know that guy.
And had a gay gimmick. And he started calling me his creamsicle. That shit stuck with me for a couple of years while I was up there, just because I wore the orange and white. But having him call me that, and then me just being like, whatever, it just stuck, and it helped me stand out almost immediately for that company, just because of the way he played off of my stuff, off my gear, essentially. So I've always tried to do things that ensure that whatever I'm doing in the ring, be it by what I'm wearing, the moves I use, the way I lock up, even, I try to do just even those little things that just like, okay, he's just a little bit different. There's something, it could be even just like, oh, he's off, but I'm going to stand out in whatever way I can.
Right. And I want to say thank you before I ask my question, because now I can put a face to that nickname. Because
you've heard Creamsicle before?
Yes, I did some shows up in Hillsboro where Cameron Starr was at, and he would tell that story, but he wouldn't say your name. He would just say it was Creamsicle. We're like, okay.
He probably forgot what my name was. That was so far back. He was like, oh yeah, I called him Creamsicle. Well, at the time, you say it's funny that you said you're the encyclopedia of wrestling. I was textbook Nolan Phillips. When I was kind of given that, I was gifted that when I first came. Like, well, you're a student of the game, so we'll just come up with something with that. So that was given textbook, and I just
got it.
Kind of ran with that.
So, who are some of your top rivals?
My top rivals. Well, I would say I have 3, and they're all from it's more in Texas. I didn't really have a real rivalry when I was doing all my stuff up in Washington and everything, but down here, number 1, probably Jake Logan. He's now wrestling more out of the Florida area. He was he's popped up randomly doing stuff for like AEW, and some of the stuff with that. Control Your Narrative. He was a part of that. So if you watched any of the Control Your Narrative stuff, he was big involved in that. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't consider it a rivalry because I've never beaten Tim. Like in one-on-one situation, I always seem to manage to get screwed out of whatever match I end up having with him. He's always been one of my better matches. I think we've always had good chemistry, and we always beat the absolute crap out of each other. I never feel good after those matches. But I've only bled in about 3 matches in my entire career. 2 of them are from him. We actually won a tag team tournament together, and he took the trophy and smashed it over the back of my head and split. Ooh. Like just caught me right with the corner, like the tip corner of one of the trophy, and just split the back of my head. I remember I had to stand in the shower for a good 30 minutes just pulling, coagulated blood because it took so long to get home and everything. Just is it still coming? Really? Like I was more angry than I was hurt. But yeah, he would definitely be number 1. Number 2, probably Ryan Justice. He was one where I had a lot of issues with. For one company, we ended up going to a different company around the same time, and we ended up becoming a tag team actually. And then after a certain situation, I actually helped him. I'm talking about a company called Square Circle Pro. It's a company that runs out of Lubbock, Texas. And I actually aided him in winning their championship, the SCP title. And he lost it to who's going to be number 3 on my list and just disappeared. So when I went chasing the title, he ended up trying to get his revenge on the other guy, but in the process kept screwing me out of my matches. And I kind of live by the philosophy of wholesome to wholesome people, toxic to toxic people. He is the one who decided to basically turn his back on me and went toxic against me. So when I exacted my revenge on him, the crowd turned on me for whatever reason, even though he'd been the one screwing me over this whole time. So since the crowd turned on me, I turned on them, and I became, I would argue, one of the most hated people in that building, to the point where now they just throw garbage at me. Which I think it's just because they actually want to give me gifts. They're just too poor to actually be able to afford anything. So they just went with what, is next to them. But they turned on me with him, and as my revenge against everybody, I went ahead and took the title for myself. So that's more recent history. After about a year, he finally got his hands on it. Whatever. That's whatever. I'm now focusing more on something else. But he would definitely be number 2. Number 3 is a gentleman by the name of Jason Taylor. He also mostly wrestles out of West Texas, but he's been kind of all over the place. He travels a lot. He's had some matches for like Ring of Honor before COVID, when they were doing like their Uprising Star and all that kind of stuff. Right. But I've had many random. His is kind of more incremental. Like I'll do some stuff with him, and then we won't touch each other for like 2 or 3 years, and then I'll have like another issue with him, and we won't touch for like another 2 or 3 years. It's like one of those ones that just keeps coming back. but we've always had good chemistry. We always have good matches. So those would definitely be my three: Jake Logan, Ryan Justice, Jason Taylor.
Nice.
Okay. Well, let's get into the first hard-hitting question, shall we?
Okay.
Let's get your top 5. What do I want to start with? Tag teams of all time.
Top 5 tag teams. I'd have to put the Dudleys in there for sure. Because I'm trying to think of like longevity as well as like impact and not just people that actually entertain me. Because there's some teams that would be like, oh, these guys are really entertaining to me, but they weren't a team for very long,
Right.
or they didn't have as big of an impact as I would have liked. I put Dudley's in there for sure. Heart Foundation, I would put in there. The Brainbusters, or just the Four Horsemen in general, but specifically Arn and Tully.
Mm-hmm.
In that same vein, you could even potentially argue that FTR could as of right now. I mean, they are the more modern version of Arn and Tully.
Absolutely.
Would they be in my top 5? I don't necessarily know, but I mean, I make an argument for it. Yeah, I'm not certain who else I'd for sure put up there. Because I know I've had a lot of people I discussed with that being like Edge and Christian. I'm like, well, really go back and look. How long were they? I mean, they've been longer apart in the business than they were together, and they've had a lot of success as singles guys. When I think a lot of more of the tag guys, I think they may have had some success, but where they got more, together. Bubba's still doing stuff with Impact and doing very good stuff, and he's had a great single stuff, but he'll always be associated straight up with Devon and the Dudley Boys.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
I don't know. I can't think of anyone else that for sure I'd want to put in those slots.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Nathan?
Top 5 indie male wrestlers.
Indie male wrestlers?
Yeah.
Like all time or like current type of thing?
Either one.
Because if you're going like all time, we're gonna assume post death WCW. That's when indies were really more of a thing, right? Like territories are basically dead.
Yeah.
Going more indies. Then you'd have to definitely bring up the guys who started there and then came up into being those big successful guys. Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn. Because those are all those are the guys who basically would leave that blueprint of we started at the bottom, now we're here, literally, as the song goes. They worked their ass off for years, decades even, to get to where they are. And they've all had success, not only on the indies, going around doing that stuff, winning the big stuff, moving over to like a Ring of Honor, becoming big names in the Ring of Honor, and then moving up to the quote-unquote big leagues and becoming very successful there as well. They've been successful practically everywhere they've gone. Mm-hmm. So that would be my top 5 for sure.
Very nice. And that's interesting because we asked a lot of those questions, and I don't think a lot of people have brought up Bryan Danielson, which now that I think about it, it's very surprising to me.
Well, I mean, at this point, he's spent more time in WWE than he was at the Indies, I would think, at this point. I mean, I could be wrong about that. But, I mean, he was, when Ring of Honor was like first starting, he was the guy. It was, him, Low Key, and Christopher Daniels. Those are like your kind of your three pillars when it really first started.
Yeah.
So a lot of people forget that he kind of came directly from there to WWE. So
Yeah. And again, Big Money, dude, you're missing a great podcast. This guy's mentioned Chris Benoit and CM Punk on the same podcast, and we both know how toxic both of those men are in professional wrestling right now. So
hey, I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? But you asked me who was the people that I latched onto. I can honestly tell you the first feud I remember, like if I think back, like the first feud that I really remember that I latched onto was Chris Benoit versus Taskmaster. When he had to fight through the entire Legion of Doom just to get to Taskmaster, and he brawled up into the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. I remember that from 94, 95, 96, whenever that was. Like, that's the earliest real wrestling memory I have. Benoit was that guy for me. I don't know if it's just because of the intensity. The same reason why a lot of people like Benoit. It was that intensity and that realness he brought to it. But then just the way that he would have matches with certain people. Like, go watch any match with him and Regal. Regal always ended up bleeding because they always had a spot where they would just headbutt the shit out of each other until one of them bled, and it was always William Regal. So, or he would chop him in the face. He would grab him, bring his head down, and then chop him in the forehead. Like, that was something that they only ever did. Again, hindsight's 2020. Completely inexcusable what he did, but
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the Taskmaster Chris Benoit, because when I was, really getting into wrestling and learning about it and stuff, that scene at Super Brawl '96 where Taskmaster and Benoit are in the ambulance together, and they kind of reach out for each other's hand, like at that time, kind of blew my mind, because it's like, wait a minute, they're against each other, but they're still like reaching out for each other for.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I just think it's awesome that, we can bring up that and not be ashamed of it, because I'm a huge Benoit fan myself too. I think,
And the thing is, you can't discredit what he accomplished in wrestling, regardless of what the rest of the stuff was.
Yeah.
His career still needs to stand alone by itself in professional wrestling.
Exactly. It does.
Well, but at the same time, though, you also have people are like, well, he should be in the Hall of Fame because no, never.
That's
He'll
different.
never go in the Hall of Fame. He shouldn't be in there. What he did is beyond disqualifying as far as anything like that is concerned.
Exactly.
But as far as I can't take away the fact that he was someone who brought me into wrestling, who made me gravitate towards it.
Yeah.
So let's do. I liked his indie answer. So let's twist it a little bit. Let's do top 5 female indie wrestlers.
So that one's a lot harder for me because, I do a lot of shows with a lot of women, but they're more, for lack of a better word, they're more regional. Like, they're not going all over the place like these guys would have done. But I guess I could go with more of just who I think would be, like, for lack of a better word, the Mount Rushmore type. Candice LeRae.
Ooh.
For sure. I know she's in WWE now, but where she came from.
Yep.
Princess Kimberly, even though I believe she's retired. Mercedes Martinez.
Yep.
Sarah Lee, even though she's been essentially like the women's trainer for WWE for a number of years, but there's a reason she got that job. She was just that damn good. Why they never put her on TV, I don't understand.
I don't understand that either.
I'm pretty sure it had something to do with Vince not liking her look or something. Like, oh, she's too homely or something. I don't know. Some bullshit reason. Number 5. Who would I round that out? Probably Ruby.
Got ya. Again, I love that list.
Exactly.
So you said you went through quite a few finishers, because other people were using them. Can you tell us how your current finisher came to be?
Very simple. My main finish, I have 2. One, I still use it even though Daniel Bryan started using it, but it's the Busaiku knee kick, kind of like Kenta used to use. The big, just running, flying knee to the face. Why? Because it's effective. And at least at the time, not a whole lot of people were doing knee strikes. Knee strikes are a lot more common nowadays, so I don't use it nearly as much. So the other thing that I just use as a finisher is just the backslide.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, just straight. And this honestly started as a meme to a certain extent. I want to say 2012. We were just bullshitting backstage, and it was just kind of like someone made a comment, which I still see to this day. Anytime someone, and the people that know me, whenever someone says this, like on Facebook or something, I always get tagged a bunch of times. But someone being like, "Did anyone ever actually want a match for the backslide?" I was like, yeah.
I do it all the time.
I do it all the time. And it was actually hilarious. The year 2012, I actually went undefeated. I got my ass kicked all the time, but I never lost any matches. And I won every single match with the backslide. In the one of two ways. Sometimes I'd be booked to win. So obviously I would just catch on the backslide one because it's a move that anybody can take. I say that even though I did have someone almost knock themselves out because for some reason they like threw themselves on their head, but whatever, that's on them. But then there would be other times
make your backslide look cool.
Yeah, it was more of a backslide driver. Yeah, I was like, I would love to do that, but I would be killing everybody I did that to because that's just an unprotected head. But I'd be booked to lose matches, but then the person I'd be wrestling would be like, "No, I'm gonna lose. He's gonna beat me with the backslide." And that happened all year long to the point where I was like, dude, I'm actually undefeated. Like, just winning with the backslide. But because it was just something dumb. I was just like, I want to see if I can get this over. I just want to see if I can get it to work. And it did, to the point where a crowd would be chanting backslide. As soon as I would even see me hooking the arms, they'd be popping like, oh, it's over. He's got him. Like, he's not kicking out. There's nothing. It doesn't matter what you do. And the thing that really sold it, I actually ended up wrestling a guy named Brandon McGregor. We did a thing where I basically beat him 3 times in one match with the backslide. We did something where I basically caught him before the bell rang. And then it's like, well, that didn't count because, bell didn't ring. Bell, start again. He comes out with like a clothesline or something like that. I just duck it, hook him, pin him again. And he's just like bitching and moaning. Blew my hand, whatever. I'm like, fine. We'll do it a 3rd time. Proceeds to beat my ass for like 10 minutes. Winds me up for his finisher. And I just countered right into the backslide again. Won, and I just ran away. So I literally only did 3 moves the entire night. All 3 were the backslide. All 3 were essentially wins. But it got the stuff over. That was just a story that we told. So the next show, do a real match. I went with the backslide again. And this was a weekly show. So by, after a month, the crowd was, oh, that's his move. That's what he's going to do. It's such an easy thing. But for whatever reason, textbook, he has that perfect backslide and no one's going to get out of it. So I just ran with it. And I still use it to this day. Even doesn't matter if I'm going to be the good guy or the bad guy. If I'm going to be the bad guy, I'll just proceed it by, kicking someone in the dick first. And then, or, whatever the situation calls for. But yeah, backslide.
Wow.
Very
And
cool.
what I like about your two finishers are both of them can be used on anybody, right?
Yes.
Like if it's a big guy or a small guy, because even the knee,
Yeah,
even if you
if
did
it's a
on
guy
a big guy,
I just got to chop him down first. I chop him down to his knees, and then
Yeah.
usually if it's a much bigger guy like that, I probably wouldn't even do one of them. I had a match like that where I hit three. I knocked the guy down to a kneel. I hit him with the first one, which kind of knocked him onto his butt. Ran and hit a second one, and then when he was starting to get up, I did like a sliding one, just slid and hit him with a third one, and then I went for the finish. Which,
Nice.
and then at one point I did stop using it because I got a really bad deep tissue bruise because that guy I told you about, Jake Logan, I hit him square in the forehead, and he's hard headed both figuratively and literally. So yeah, I had a deep tissue bruise on my knee for like 6 months. It just would not stop hurting. I'm like, how could I hit you that hard? Like that my freaking kneecap is just like bleeding all the time. But
Good. Nice.
and it was one of those situations where like I guess while I was running at him, my knee pad just like shifted. So I caught him full, like no padding whatsoever, just full to the skull. He was fine, hard-headed bastard. But, I mean, I caught him with it, whatever. He was hurting in the moment, but like an hour later, he's fine. I'm over here like hobbled.
You're like, do we have any crutches?
Okay, well, we're going to throw an homage to Mr. Big Money. Again, you should be in the room, Big Money. We know you're watching. But anyways, I like to open this question up with, he's sticky fingers, he's got to have his fingers on his money all the time. So he likes the peanut butter to keep it extra sticky. And Nos, he likes peanut butter on everything too, peanut butter cups, peanut butter cookies, whatever. So the question to this is, because they like peanut butter so much, that's their favorite snack. So you, sir, what is your favorite snack or cookie?
Favorite snack. I tend not to snack all that much. I try not to anyway. But like, I guess since I don't really snack isn't a good one. I would just say like, what's my like comfort food that I go to? Chips and queso. Maybe not necessarily chips and queso, just queso in general. Like I can just, depending on what it is, like give me a burrito, I'll dip it. Like whatever it is, the queso.
That's kind of like Nathan and hot sauce.
Yep.
I had a friend in high school who would actually bring a thing of Tabasco sauce to school. So because it didn't matter what he got at the cafeteria, he was dumping that on there.
Well, the commercials for that Frank's Red Hot sauce, we got that little lady that says, I'll put that shit on everything.
Yeah.
I literally keep that slogan alive at the nursing home that I live in. So, if you had one dream opponent from any generation, who would it be and why?
Now, this is going to be a weird answer. Just because most people would go for, some uber big name, right?
Right.
I would say Akira Tozawa.
Ooh, interesting.
Because I've actually been following his career since it started. The company I started training for, a place called, like I said, it was called Pinnacle Wrestling. It was in Washington. It was near Parkland, Washington. And
okay, that's up by Seattle.
Yeah, and Jack Evans lives in Parkland. So whenever at the time, so this is around 2005. So this is around when he was doing his stuff in Ring of Honor. He was going to Japan and stuff. Whenever he was actually in town, though, he would come here, to train. And I tell people this all the time. He probably doesn't like me telling people this. He can freaking wrestle. He's such a good chain wrestler. He can do all that stuff. that's where I learned a lot of my stuff was actually from Jack. When you'd be in town, we would just do stuff. My first actual win was on Jack Evans because we were just like in just like a bullshit show, like just a show for the wrestlers. My first win was technically on him, just because he decided to give it to me. But he taught me a lot with that. But one of the things he showed me was just a 6-second clip of doing Akira Tozawa's taunt at the time, because Akira Tozawa had a gimmick where he was the leader of a juku. Now, juku, Juku in Japanese, is essentially a cram school, where kids would go, they go to school, but then they go to the juku afterwards to hone their craft even more, to get better, to get prepared to go to high school. Or while they're in high school, they would do the juku, go to extra schooling to do better so they could go to college. So his gimmick was essentially that he ran this wrestling college, so to speak. It wasn't for people to learn how to wrestle. It was for like guys who weren't doing so good to go get polish, even though he himself was a rookie, which was just absolutely hilarious to me. And he was mostly involved in comedy stuff. Like if you go look up some of his stuff from there, the thing that really stuck out, he was wrestling a guy from DDT called Danshuko Dino, which if you look up Danshuko Dino versus Akira Tozawa, I will tell you is potentially the gayest wrestling you'll ever see. Because Danshuko Dino, that's his whole gimmick, is basically he's just like overly sexual gay guy who just like attacks people. Like his finisher, he wears multiple trunks, and what he does, he opens up the really big baggy one, he takes your head, puts your head in his trunks, and then hits a pile driver.
Oh,
so, really over the top stuff. But the stuff that he did with that, but then just going there, and then he did this gimmick where he put on a lot of weight, like 50 pounds. He got bloated and started wrestling with this other dude, calling themselves the Metabolic Brothers. And then when that ran its course, he went through a training regimen and lost all of that weight in record time, and he got absolutely shredded. And then WWE came calling. So when you first watch him in that Cruiserweight Classic, that's around that time when he was just doing, just kicking the crap out of people, machine gun chopping, hitting people with Germans and all that kind of stuff. Of course, they use him more for comedy, but he's always been good with comedy as well. Yep. But it was just one where it was just a weird transition to me. Like he went from this comedy wrestler to, and like basically being picked on by, like he got, in the Japanese system, they had like the whole young boy thing. Mm-hmm. He was clearly getting young boyed by the vets in Dragon Gate like all the time. But then he just did the training, came to America, did a tour in America, had some badass matches with like Kevin Steen at the time and Chris Hero and stuff over in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and then came back and became one of the biggest badasses in Dragon Gate before he got signed to WWE. So I followed his stuff, and I've kind of felt like I've done that a lot too, where I kind of got young boyed a little bit. I didn't really do a whole lot, and then I did a lot of comedy, and then I became a lot more serious. I had the same kind of evolution, nowhere near to the success that he did, obviously. But to me, I think it would be a very fun encounter. And to me, that's what I'd be looking for. I'm not looking to be like, oh yay, I was in the ring with Hulk Hogan. Like I don't care about that. I want to have a match that I think would be the most fun I could have. And I think I could have something really fun with him because we could start off very comedic and everything like that and get the crowd behind it. And then we just have that one moment where it's like, oh, you caught me a little stiff. I'm going to give you my receipt. And he didn't think I was that, and then we transition from this comedy stuff to this hard hitting matchup and then, go. So you can have that kind of evolution throughout the whole thing. And I just think it'd be entertaining. I know I would have a lot of fun with it. And for anyone who's watching this who only knows Akira Tozawa as like the WWE Ninja, you need to go find either his early stuff when they were doing like the Cruiserweight Classic stuff, or go find his stuff from like Dragon Gate and everything to really get an appreciation for how good he actually is.
Got ya. I'm glad you brought up how good of a chain wrestler Jack Evans was. We live in Longview, Washington, and we did a show at the training school I was at up in Rainier, in like an indoor soccer stadium. And so they ran some more shows out of there. And at one point, Jack Evans took on Max Payne
Yeah.
from like WCW.
Oh yeah, no, I
But
know Max. I worked a couple shows with him.
Max was too big for, Jack to really do a lot of his like stand up, like high flying stuff.
Well, yeah, he just bounced right off them because the dude's a giant.
Yeah. So he really had to use some of that like chain wrestling in that match to get him to the point where he could do what he was used to do.
Well, and if anyone ever really wanted to go see that, if they can find it, which I'm sure you could still find it, find it was a match. It was Jack Evans and Bryan Danielson back in Ring of Honor. And it was fantastic. And it was just Daniel Bryan turning Jack into knots because, Jack doesn't have a spine. And if he does, it's made out of rubber, So that would be one I would suggest. Like, you really want to go see like the stuff that he can actually do. He's not just the flippity flops, as they like to say. He can really go when he's asked to. And that's basically what he told me. He's like, well, most people don't pay me to do that stuff. They want to see me do the high flying stuff because I could do absolutely crazy stuff in the air. I was like, that's fair. They paid you to do this thing. Go do the thing. There's no reason for me to go out and do more.
Exactly.
The same kind of thing like Santino Marella. When he was coming up on, in their feeder fed, he was kind of like a Kurt Angle-esque type, like wrestler. That was his gimmick. And then he became the funniest thing on TV for a while. So, and he did, even when he was in the ring, he didn't do any real work. He would bust it out randomly, like where he'd catch somebody's arm and he'd do, over their shoulder throws.
Throw
And then he'd just be like, holy crap, how did I do that? But he can really go if he really wanted to. He doesn't need to. And I've taken a lot of those lessons and I apply it to my own stuff. It's like we were talking before we went live where, when I work as a heel, I don't do a whole lot of real moves. All the moves that should be flashy and exciting, that should all be reserved for the guy I'm dancing with that night. It's because if I'm doing big flashy stuff as the bad guy, and then the good guy does the same thing, it's like, well, y'all are on the even playing field. But if I go in there and I let the guy shine on me and he's doing all the flashy stuff and the crowd's popping for him, and then I just do something dastardly to take him down, and I just keep the guy on the ground, don't let him get up, just do simple stuff, grind him, keep him down, don't let him do anything, and just do real basic stuff. The crowd's going to start getting they're getting restless, like, dude, fucking do something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So now when the good guys start making their comeback and he actually starts doing something, it means more. Because now they're not even just excited, oh, yay, the good guy's doing something. Now it's, oh, my God, he's doing the amazing stuff. Now we get to see some big flash and everything. So generally that's how I'll tell, especially when it comes to my heel work. I'll do nothing. I did a tag match one time where it was me versus one guy essentially, and we just had partners. But my partner had the guy I was wrestling, I was really feuding with, on the ground. I tagged in. I didn't even touch him. I just walked around him, taunting him the whole time. Gave him plenty of time to potentially crawl over and tag as a partner, but he wanted to get at me so bad, he crawled and came to my corner to get at me. And I just tagged my partner back in and let him continue beating the shit out of him. So I didn't have to do anything. I literally just walked around talking crap. And
that is so brilliant.
And it's like having that pause moment. And that was a minute in the match right there. Of me just walking around haha, you can't do, what are you going to do? You're on the ground crying like a bitch. What are you going to do? You can't touch me. Get up. Come on, hit me. Oh, you were close. That ad with the dollar. Oh, you almost got me. Just dangled myself in front of him and taunted him so he didn't go tag. That meant more, that got more of a reaction from the crowd than if I had jumped in there and then started pick him up, hit him with the crap out of him. pick him up, throw him over here, throw him across the ring, run to hit him, boom, go for a cut, like do all this movement. It didn't mean anything. It was just moves for the sake of moves. What I did, being a jackass in that situation, meant so much more. I got better reaction, and it meant more to the story. So when I do finally get my comeuppance, it just means that much more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
very cool.
In case y'all didn't gather, yeah, I enjoy being the bad guy.
Hey, that's a good thing.
It's just so much more fun because most people, they don't even, like, I even do the bad guy. I do the heel different than most people because, like, you know, if I work a show where everybody's cussing, even the good guys, I'm not gonna cuss. Especially when the crowd starts, you know, yelling at me like, "Fuck you, you suck dick," blah 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 blah. I'm like, ugh, this is a family show. Y'all need to knock it off, okay? Like, we are not gonna tolerate that here. You know, simple stuff like this. Or one, I actually stole this one from Rick Rude. There was one particular crowd that was super loud and he couldn't be heard. So he just got on the mic. He just took the mic and just started going like this.
I love it.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm the one with the mic, and I'll just keep doing this until y'all shut up. And you can bring the audience down to where it's like I know they're doing the stuff with like Dom on TV right now. Like that is kind of the gimmick. The crowd gets super loud so they don't hear him and everything like that. But if he really wanted to, or if the company really wanted to, they could get him to where he controls that crowd if he wants to.
Yep.
Like, okay, we're not going to move. The show's not going to go on until I get a chance to say what I want to say. Because of who I am, I have that power. I can do that. You have to sit there and listen to me.
Right.
So,
to a certain extent, look at Don Callis. They're doing the same thing, but he controls the volume of the crowd more than Dominic does now.
Yeah. So it's sometimes it's just little things, and it's like I can, you know, hopefully, usually now I'll get a little bit more time if I'm asked to cut a promo. I'm not just giving like 3 minutes. I'm giving like 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes for that segment because they know I'm going to feed off the crowd and I'm going to use that to my advantage. So it might only take me 3 minutes to get across whatever it is we're trying to get across, but because of the things I do that bounce off of everybody.
Right.
At least is what I try to do. So it doesn't, you know, sometimes it's hit or miss. It doesn't always work, especially for newer crowds. Sometimes that, you know, it takes a little bit of time to establish all that kind of stuff. But once you get them, what you got, like the company I work for down in Lubbock, I think I told you this before the show. I got to the point now they're throwing trash at me. Like I almost wanted to leave the ring last show because I kept because I lost my title in January and I've been nursing a slight knee injury, so I'm not really wrestling right now. I'm focusing more on helping some other guys, elevating them, because every single guy that I've managed has been a champion. So I'm helping a couple of other guys get there. But there was at one point part of the crowd, they were booing me more than my guy in the ring. I'm like, I'm not even doing anything. I'm just standing here. Like, I'm not even in your way. I'm squatting down. Like if the ring apron's up here, usually, you know, you'd be standing there. I'm squatting down, so my eyes are just right here. So for sure the crowd can see me. I'm even being generous here. But y'all are still being toxic assholes. And now you understand why I still hate you people. Like, if you guys would just focus on, why are you looking at my ass? Focus what's going on in the ring, you know? Stuff like that. Like, which a lot of that stuff honestly has helped me transition because my real job, I am a teacher, so that kind of fits with my more educated gimmick and all that kind of stuff. But you gotta have a quick wit with some of these fans. But I mean, it's not too hard because they usually come up with the same stuff. They're just like, "You suck." I'm like, okay, come up with something else new, and maybe we can have a dialogue. But until then, I'm gonna ignore you. Like I don't care. But having or simple things like I had someone yelled at me, like this is when I was wrestling up in Washington. I was still in college, and they were like, "Hey, textbook, you need to eat your Wheaties," because I was only like 150 pounds. I was hella small. I was like, dude, I can't afford Wheaties. I go to college. Like, what are you talking about? Just, and I never try to go out. I never try to insult the crowd, even if they're being, assholes to me. I'm not going to heckle them back. I just kind of absorb it and just respond with something that makes it seem like it doesn't matter, because I feel like it pisses them off even more, especially if they're cussing at me, because I can just go, ugh, no, we're not.
We're not doing that.
We're not doing that. It's like, I'll treat them like I'm working customer service. Like, if you want to have a dialogue with me, you're going to have to bring your voice from up here to down here, and you're going to have to cut that language out. But until then,
I love it.
You're up here, I need you down here. Or this one really works. I love this one. You use this anytime a woman's you just go, ma'am. You don't even have to follow it up with anything. Just doing that will set them off even more. So it's like I've dove more into the things like, okay, what do I know that really pisses people off? That isn't just being like, fuck you and in your face and everything. Like, everybody does that. So what's that annoying thing? It's the same kind of thing. Even if I really argued with someone's like, screw you, I'm gonna, fuck your mom. I'll be like, whatever, booger eater. I just start throwing kindergarten insults at him, because it's more indignant to me. Like, I can't even hear you because you're so fat. Just keep calling them fat over and over and over again.
I love that, because you kind of strike me as the guy that would say something that they would leave going, wait, was that an insult or was that?
Well, my favorite actual insult to use is calling them pudding brains. And that one I actually stole from Doctor Who, because Peter Capaldi, when he first comes in, he's all like angry and stuff like that. I don't know who he is and everything. But his version of the Doctor, he was calling the humans pudding brains because they were doing stupid crap. I'm like, I like that. So, yeah, that one I straight up stole.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's just get into another question here. Who, in your opinion, who is your best, or who is the best wrestler turned actor? Yeah.
Might be controversial, but potentially Batista. And I based that off of the producer who worked directly with Batista, and he straight up said he might actually be one of the best actors I've worked with. Drax, the way they portrayed Drax in the Guardians movies, he became an instant favorite. He's not supposed to be necessarily a character that everyone's like, oh my god, I'm gonna love that guy. You know what I mean? He's not the fluffy raccoon. He's not the goofy tree, but he's someone that, because of the way that he portrayed him and his sense of humor and everything, it came across very well. Mm-hmm. But I can't say The Rock. I can't he obviously makes the most money, but if you put 10 of his movies next to each other and asked me to differentiate the characters, I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. Hell, half of his movies have him wearing beige in a jungle. You could take all those clips and put them next to me and go, which movie is that one from? It's like, well, is that Jumanji? Or is that
Jumanji 2?
Or is that I don't know. I don't know which movie it is, because it's literally the same guy wearing the same outfit in the same spot. I wouldn't doubt some of those movies were actually shot in the same area. Hey, that's Tree from the other movie. I wouldn't doubt that is 100% true. But Cena might end up being better in the long run. Because he really fits, I think, especially because he's sticking more to these kind of comedic role, comedic/action movies. That fits Cena very well. Crap, why can't I think of the name of it? The show he did for DC. Peacemaker. That was fantastic.
Yep.
That character is perfect for him. Kind of boy in blue type of thing, but with all the baggage that comes with it and everything. It was a great character for him. And a lot of the other random stuff I've seen him in, I can't think of the name of that movie, but the one where they're basically trying to crash the party, the prom, of their
Oh,
daughter.
oh,
It was like 3 different families, and they found out like the daughters had a pact to get laid at prom. So they
yeah,
Oh.
I know the
like,
movie. I can't think of the.
I can't think of the name of it right now, but again,
I
a
can see
great
the
comedic
like
role
the
for it.
logo too, and it's driving me nuts right now.
But you know what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but like he was great in that. It wasn't like a big, summer blockbuster movie. It didn't make a ton of money. I probably found it more entertaining than freaking Black Adam.
Mm.
So, take with that what you will.
So I have to tell the Batista story where I live.
Okay.
I watched the Cabin movie, the Cabin in the Lake or whatever, Cabin in the Woods,
Yeah. I didn't see that one.
and brilliant movie.
Was it
For
good?
like a psychological movie for him he did a brilliant job. To the point where I live in a nursing home, right? They turned all the lights off at a certain time, and I turned all the lights off in the room.
Yeah.
I forgot the fact that people come in to make sure you're okay. So I'm really into the movie, and it gets to the point where it's like really intense, and somebody taps me on the shoulder, right, to see if I'm okay. I have cerebral palsy. I can't walk. That day, I almost walked.
Because I've heard like at least the story of it is like the whole thing is like the world's gonna end unless he does something supposedly.
Yeah, like the family has to sacrifice like one of their family members to save
Or
the
everybody's
world.
gonna die or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. I think the main reason why I didn't see it wasn't that M. Night Shyamalan? Wasn't that the
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't liked any of his stuff since probably Signs.
I could see that. Yeah.
Like I went and saw The Village when it first came out in theaters, and I was just that it was like, really, you just shat the bed for the finale. That's all you're going to remember. I mean, it's
Thank
just
you.
like in wrestling. If you screw the finish, no one gives a shit about the match. It's not going to matter. The finish has to be perfect. The referee has to be perfect. Like a lot of people don't appreciate how hard it is to be a referee. Like I've done reffing. There was a point. I took some time off from wrestling because I had a string of concussions. I got knocked out in a match, and then the very next week I landed on my head, got another one. Next week I got another one. I was just like, okay, I got to take some time off. So we did an angle where I was fired from wrestling, but I came back as a referee. And because we needed good referees. I'm like, well, I know what I'm doing. I know how to get around the ring. I can do this. So I just moved into the referee role. But I mean, having a bad referee can absolutely ruin a match. Having a good referee means you don't even realize the referee is there. That's why sometimes I look at some referees that are like, oh, did you see, Aubrey Edwards? I'm like, that's not good. You know her by name and she stood out for some reason. That usually means there's an issue, unless there was like a specific spot for that person. Like, there's been times I've been watching Raw. I'm like, wait, does Charles Robinson even work anymore? Like,
I don't know.
Like, it's like, does he or not? I don't know. Why? Because he's invisible. He just does his job, and he does it so well that he's just not there. He doesn't bring any attention to himself.
Right.
So, does that make sense? Why I think the referee should like?
No, that does make sense. It makes perfect sense.
Like, there was one match I can't remember. I was watching something like old WCW, and someone told me they didn't watch the match, and I was watching it. It was a good match, but the whole thing was ruined from the freaking referee. There was like 2 or 3 things that referee did in the match. I was like, how? What? Oh, just completely took me out of it because I could see how bad like this referee was. It just completely immersed me out, like took me out of the immersion of like getting sucked into the fight. So.
And really quick, thank you for saying that about The Village. 2 hours of watching it, the movie, and they can just go through the woods into the highway. Like,
yeah, like it was just,
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, just a big turd in the bowl. And I felt like a lot of his stuff since then has been the same way. So that's probably the main reason why I didn't see it. I was like, "It's in that Shyamalan." I'm like, man, can you at least just not put your name on there and tell me that it's you? Because he always puts
or tell me afterwards.
Like the movie is, you know, The Dollhouse by M. Night Shyamalan, like way big overcut. Like, why are you doing that? Like, why? He just marks out for himself far too much.
Or wait till after the movie comes out, right? By like after you watch it, then you're like, oh,
that was me. Thank you. Like, oh, he actually did something good. But it's the same kind of thing. Like, he has a reputation now. If I see a movie of his coming out, it could be the best movie of the year. I'm immediately going to think it's going to be shit.
Yep.
Just because his name's attached to it. You know, same kind of thing now. If you have Jared Leto in a superhero movie, I think it's going to be shit.
Yeah, because of the way he did the Joker.
Well, not even Joker, but then he was also Morbius.
No, that's true.
Morbius was crap as well. I'm like, dude, you're 0 for 2. Like Chris Evans, yeah, he was in a bad Fantastic Four movie, but then he turns around and they use him as Captain America, and he's perfect in that role.
Yep.
You know, I couldn't imagine anyone else necessarily being Captain America. Same thing, Robert Downey Jr. Like, he looks like Tony Stark.
Iron Man.
Yeah, he just straight up looks like him. Like, he's perfect for that role. I'm like, that's like they literally went, who do we get to play a billionaire alcoholic playboy? Oh, I know. How about a millionaire alcoholic playboy? Like, oh, he is that guy. He's been arrested too? Huh. He sounds perfect. Like,
so let's get a couple more questions in, and then Tony, you want to get your final question in?
Well, I guess the final question is, where can we find you? And what do you have coming up for matches, and where can we find you on your social medias?
My social media, honestly, is just Nolan Phillips on Facebook. I don't really use Twitter or Instagram or any other crap. I find it completely unnecessary, so I'll just stick with the one. It's easy to find because you'll see my beautiful face on there, and I got someone in a submission, and I'm actually kind of doing the was it Burt Reynolds?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the Burt Reynolds pose when he's all up like this. I called the picture lady at that show. She does fantastic work, by the way. But I called her over. I had him in the hold, and I was like, "Oh yeah, hey, look, get me." So I got that one. So you'll be able to see all that. Coming up, like I said, I'm still kind of rehabbing my knee, so I'm not really wrestling anywhere. I'm mostly doing managerial stuff, but I will be getting back to wrestling. The main company I work for is Squared Circle Pro out of Lubbock. They pretty much run all of their shows through a place called Jake's Backroom down there. And Jake's Backroom, they do tons of stuff, rock concerts, mostly rock concerts. I'm sure they do like rap and stuff like that too. But that's the main place. Other than that, not a whole lot. I might have something coming up soon, but I'm keeping that one hush hush because I'm going to surprise some people. Because
gotcha.
You gotta have some surprises in wrestling, right? So
absolutely.
And your last question, Nathan?
What's your future goals?
Future goals? You mean like within the wrestling business, or just like life in general? That's a tough. Honestly, just to be able to get back in the ring and not hurt. Because honestly, like as far as like me, like everybody has aspirations to be in like WWE and stuff like that, but I'm now 36 years old. I don't have the body for it. They're never going to look at me. And I also don't really want to travel. I don't want to I've done the road trips. I've gone from Seattle down to Amarillo, up to Philadelphia, down to Georgia. Like, I've done the cross country stuff. I don't want to be in a car that long anymore. I don't want to do all that kind of stuff. So at this point, I'm just doing it to have fun. And I just want to have stuff. I don't want to just have matches for the sake of matches. I want to tell some good stories. I want to tell stories strong enough that like 10 years later, for whatever reason, it just like pops up in your head and you're like, oh, I remember that storyline. That was a really good, strung out feud or whatever. Like, even though it was an indie show, it's just that thing, for whatever reason, it sticks and it just pops back up. And I have had stuff like that. I've had people message me after like 8 years randomly, like, hey, you remember when you did this? I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, okay, I had an effect on someone in some regard. And that's all I really want to do. I want to leave memories. I want to entertain. People go to wrestling shows not because they want to see legitimate fights. You know what I mean? Everybody knows it's staged. But they go there to suspend their disbelief, just like going and watching a movie. They want to believe, and that's all I want to give them. If that means if they want me to be the biggest baby face, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to slap hands, kiss babies. That's what I have to do. I'm going to be that goofy guy that they want to see. But if they want me to be the villain, I'm going to go out there and be the villain. And again, I just do what the crowd tells me. If they're going to be toxic, I'll be toxic. If they're going to be wholesome, I'll be wholesome. But all I want to do is entertain. If that means sometime in the future I get the ability to have the pencil in my hand, so to speak, where I'm the one actually running the show, or even owning my own company, if I had the funding and the ability to get sponsorship and do that somewhere, I would love to do that. Because everybody has the thought, I'll do it right. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think I could, and I think I have the head for it. If you ask anybody that knows me within the business, they would probably say that they would trust my judgment. Like, I've always been able to get, I feel like I'm one of those people that people believe would take care of them, so to speak. I don't play politics. I don't do. I mean, I pitch stuff and I want to do certain things, but I'm not like sniffing someone's butt just to get a title. I'll actually give you an example. I recently, for that same company, I actually was the champion. But before that, I did actually help with creative on the show. And they told me, because of the situation, I wasn't penciled in to be that guy. It was supposed to be somebody else, but they decided that they were going to leave the company and they were moving across, or I don't even think they moved, but they decided they were going to go do other stuff. They just weren't going to have the time for SCP. So I got kind of penciled in. And I was like, well, if you're going to do that, then you have to take me off of creative. I'm not going to be one of those people that's like, oh, you're the Booker psychic, that's why you got the title. We're not doing that. If I'm going to be this guy, if I'm going to be that character for you right now, I can't be involved over here, because I'm not going to, I'm not going to be the guy who books himself to do this particular thing. So and now that I'm no longer the title, I am back helping with the creative. So it's like, okay, now that part is past, I am back involved. So I won't do both at the same time. I can't. Things get messy when that happens.
Yep.
So.
Well, Tony, you want to hit Big Buddy's compound?
Seems how
because he wasn't here.
Seems how Mr. Big Money is not here, but no, don't get us wrong. We love the guy. He is actually starting his own professional wrestling school, and you're going to love this because there's not very many in Washington State, but he's up in the Pullman Plosblo area.
Okay.
So he's going to start doing online schooling, online training until he can get a wrestling ring. That's right. He's just starting out his own promotion, and he's going to start giving you online classes, how to eat right, what kind of exercises to do, how to strengthen stuff, just general knowledge stuff to get you going before you get into the ring. So, So it's Big Money Compound. You can find it on Instagram. You can find Big Money Dodge on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I think he's got Twitter. Yes, he tweets. But they're going to be every Tuesday and Thursday starting in July. And his first trainer he has announced is none other than SoCal Crazy.
Okay.
So anybody,
$25.
what's this encyclopedia? I was taking a breath. But
Oh,
go ahead,
sorry.
finish it. Go ahead and finish it.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You ruined it now.
No. You're right. Go ahead.
Someone needs to do it.
Okay, so it's $25 a class or $150 a month. Classes start the first week of July, and it's Big Money Compound on Facebook, Instagram. So go look him up. Anybody that wants to get in the wrestling world, or even if you're in the wrestling world and you want to refresh your course. So now, because I'm not so rude, Mr. Noss, will you cover the last two sponsors if you can?
Yes, I can. Thank you. The first one is community action reaching, in your opinion. Community action reaching everybody. And it's not nice to say that her her organization is boring.
I'm not saying her promotion is boring.
Community action reaching everybody, and to get a hold of her, the lady that's in charge, you can look up Becky Bernhardt. And then the second one is Bruce Nichols Painting for all your painting, pressure washing, and lead removal needs. And you can find him on Angie's.
So again, for myself, for Nolan, for Nathan, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you very much.